Thanks for staying with us. This is Daybreak and your time is appreciated. We welcome your contributions. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We are focusing on what will be happening on Monday, God willing, at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, with Africa now convening a climate summit as a stocktake measure ahead of the climate conference COP28 in the United Arab Emirates in December later this year, that will be attended by the world leaders. And of course, the agenda items for this is on affordable and clean energy, climate action and financing question, and also a partnership for development in regards to growth and climate finance and the mitigation measures required. Dr. Oniu, this isn't the first event more or less happening in Kenya, and there was an entirely themed conference in Makueni County in 2021, the multi-level governance for climate action. From your observation as a scientist and an agricultural expert, where have we reached with the commitment that we made in Wote, in Makueni in 2021 as part of the counties now getting the ball, rolling up their sleeves and initiating these conversations right from the devolved units up the top?
Yeah, let me say, as much as it is lagging, or maybe the progress is not being seen, all I can say is that some of the fruits that came out of these meetings in Kenya, be it the one that was in Makueni, we saw counties moving towards having a climate change action plan, policies and acts. We saw counties setting aside funds for climate change disasters. So this is something that obviously is a positive milestone. The issue now should be, once they have set up all these instruments that they have, what are they doing with it? What are some of these areas they're investing in? And this one also falls into counties. Are they having technologies they can invest in that are worthwhile? The case scenario I've seen in Nakuru County, they have made a huge milestone, especially within the clean cooking space. I visited one site where they were using briquettes, which is also one space of adaptation and mitigation. I've seen a space whereby Nakuru County also they were coming up with a project of which they're planning in the future to rehabilitate the dump sites, whereby they can be able to use that dump site in terms of harnessing energy. And at the same time, it will reduce emissions. Remember that some of the largest emitters of methane and carbon emissions, they come from landfills. Yeah. And if we don't rehabilitate the landfills, so these are some of the low-hanging fruits that I expect Kenya should be talking about when they go into the Africa Climate Summit, in terms of which investors are ready to come into the issue that we have right now in terms of our landfills. We have a case scenario of Sweden whereby they actually recycle all their landfill in terms of the waste, garbage. In fact, they have to import. They have to import waste from other countries because they have industries they had already set up which run on this waste to generate electricity and other things. So they have to import waste from other countries so that the industries keep on running. So some of the projects that I expect Kenya to put on the forefront is how can you rehabilitate the landfills? That is one, in terms of accessing, in terms of energy production. Two, I'm looking into how can Kenya call for investors into the clean cooking space in terms of clean cooking jikos, solar panels, and all these things. Also, I'm looking into a space whereby Kenya can dive into the climate health sector, because you have seen climate change having a huge impact on the health sector. We have seen people obviously having issues with skin diseases, which will be cropping up. Cancer is on the rise, be it skin cancer. We are having a stagnated growth in children here and there. And all these things are linked to climate. So we are trying to see how can climate and health be intertwined, and obviously the Ministry of Health be roped in, because time immemorial we've been thinking things to do with climate fall under the Ministry of Environment. But it is a ripple effect, and we need to have all ministries working in synergy, because these call for a concerted effort and solution.
Paul, talk to me then about the significance of this to be an inward conversation of Kenya and Africa rather than outward. Of course, inevitably the world will be meeting in the United Arab Emirates. Yes. But the importance it carries with regards to the inner conversation
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I like the fact that it's very a hype moment right now, you know, working on a very few days until Monday when the main summit is happening, but also just under 2 days until the Africa Youth Climate Assembly is happening, right, from Friday to Sunday. And I feel definitely it's important for us to have that moment to discuss African issues with African leadership, right? For most times we've been made to sit back and listen to Global North or other developed countries on what their perspective is, but not really giving our own voices on what is happening on the ground. So I do think this is an opportunity for us to actually shape the agenda from youth to farmers to all different constituencies and government really, and bring the conversation about what is Africa doing, what is Africa contributing to the global climate agenda, and then what is the opportunity then to collaborate, because again, I think we must agree that climate change is cross-cutting across, and it doesn't matter whether in the developed world or in the developing world, we still need to find some synergies and points of collaboration. So I think that's very important. Another key point that Kinyanjui has brought up is on the issue of health, right? Times even a new climate-related diseases that not so many people are thinking about, but think for example, pediatricians and people who are dealing with children, right? Most children being born now will be exposed to more climate risks and health-related issues around the changing climate, right? Mm-hmm. So then how do we incorporate people who are giving care to children, pregnant mothers and the elderly, so that then we merge climate, health, children, and then the solutions that we want to implement. So definitely that's a bit of collaboration, and also across the spaces will be very much needed. But at this point, it's a very opportune moment for Africa to already center the conversations and show the world what we are thinking for our own development agenda. And remember, we have an Africa Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. And so it has to start from us, and then outsiders can come and support. But if we don't lead, we don't impact and we don't implement.
Dr. Kinyanjui, can this shift, can this prompt a shift from dependence, as we have seen, on richer nations to fund climate adaptation and financing because of the consequences, to a more African solution towards funding its own climate consequences and ending that dependency, which has been the tradition on richer nations, for example, that the big polluters, Africa isn't, but still paying for the consequences?
Yes, I think this is something that we've been calling for, and we are hoping that a court can be set, maybe in the ICC, that actually prosecutes environmental injustices that we are seeing. These are some of the many environmental injustices, because when you look at the Constitution of Kenya, and I believe every law that is governed globally, we have the right to live and to a clean environment. That is one thing. So if you go against that, then it means that I have a right to take you to court and to be prosecuted in the same. And maybe something I need to mention here on the same is that we should be thinking in terms of, as much as we are having these delegates coming to Kenya, we need to leave a positive impression because we don't need them to go back talking about the traffics and some of the snarl-ups that they will face. I'm very sure there'll be so many things they'll face. Because talking about more than 10,000 people in Nairobi, that's like a small mandamano, but a peaceful one. So what we are calling for is, we are hoping the three ministries can work concurrently, especially the Ministry of Transport. The Ministry of Transport by CS Murkomen, I hope he has pulled up his socks, especially in terms of ensuring there's a smooth traffic flow. Why can't they open up the highway and let it be free and accessible to all?
Expressway.
Yes, the expressway, because at that point then it will reduce congestion. Secondly, I know they cannot go the way of Egypt, where we had buses which were designated to carry people, because we had that system of BRT system in Kenya. It failed. Money had been invested in it. If it had been active, the BRT system, then we'd be expecting to have buses. I know Kenya has some eco-friendly buses which are electrically fueled, which could have been using the BRT system, taking people to the KICC meeting. So traffic will be a huge problem, and I don't know what the government has taken in terms of ensuring that all these investors who come in don't lose money and manpower in terms of traffic snarl-ups getting to the meeting. I'm hoping that the CS of Interior, also Kindiki, will be able to ensure that the security is beefed up, because we are living in in very trying times, and I hope that security will be beefed up for these investors to be able to feel secured going to these meetings and leaving these meetings. And last but not least is the CS for environment, because this is the docket that falls squarely on that area. We are hoping that they set up innovative solutions, they set up spaces and what we call booths for Kenyan youths and Kenyan engineers and technologists, just to showcase what are some of the innovations we have. Because the investors will be coming, they'll be looking into where can we put our money in. So if we don't have a booth that showcases what Kenya is doing in terms of a booth on clean energy, a booth on climate solutions and technologies, a booth on so many things in terms of even clean energy solutions. So we need all these booths in Kenyan space so that we can be able to get financing based on something that is seeable and something that is tangible. So moving forward, I'm hoping that will not have any snarl-ups, because that also will create a bad impression. And the reason you should be, the question you should be asking yourself is, why is Kenya given such a huge privilege to host such a meeting? And the reason is that Kenya stands among the many nations. One, in Africa, we are rated the top #1 in terms of clean renewable energy, having the largest geothermal power plant. In the world, we are rated top 5 in terms of clean renewable energy. So in fact, Kenya, we are ranked so highly in terms of clean renewable energy, and this sets a bold move in terms of us hosting this meeting. And moving forward, I hope this will be a learning lesson to many African nations and our neighboring partners in terms of hosting such meetings and creating a conducive environment for climate activists.
Thank you. Paul, your final words. Would there be an outcome beyond compromise, beyond pledges, beyond the promises? Will the African Climate Summit be of different taste and tone from what we have seen in Glasgow and in Sharm el-Sheikh?
Amazing. I'll start by saying, #1, on the issue of technology, and I'm not speaking on behalf of government, but I am very aware, because I'm leading on innovations and technology, that there is a whole Kenyan tent that will be hosting all these amazing solutions. And for youth, we've actually had over 60 youth apply with their different and amazing innovations, some of which we've been working and traveling across the country to, to tap into it and then collect these stories to bring to KICC. And actually, youth have also been given a serious space to also host their innovations. Of course, not big, because you cannot accommodate everyone, but there is that space. To your question, Abdulkadir, I think this will be concrete in the sense that, #1, there is the incorporation of youth perspective, that young people for the longest time have not been put as leaders or co-leaders in this space. But now we are seeing we're in a point where actually young people are going to first lead the agenda, setting the tone for what the Africa Climate Summit will be leading. But then, of course, through the Africa Youth Climate Declaration and the Africa Leaders Climate Declaration again, this one will be very key instruments, and actually will, through the Africa Group of Negotiators, go to COP28 with, and then use it as our negotiation tool. So I do think that is a very key outcome and a document that must be concrete. And media has a role, really. You need to be the first people championing for it, interrogating it, and calling the leaders who are going to sign it in Kenya and across Africa to really style up to the occasion and ensure that they follow the commitment, show us the money, get us the investors, and actually get all these commitments and declaration into full implementation.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Kinyanjui Koimbori, your time is all appreciated, agriculture and climate change scientist, and also Kaluki Paul, Africa Youth Climate Assembly member, ahead of the Monday Climate Summit, which will be happening at the Kenyatta International Convention Center here in Nairobi. A stock-taking summit ahead of the climate conference COP28 in the United Arab Emirates later this year. And of course, we thank you for your time and also feedback on the hashtag Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdulkadir. We are back with more after the break here. Stay tuned.